Thank you for the opportunity. Okay, so you already introduced me, but for those of you who don't know, I'm Jamie Knoll. I'm not a professional speaker, but I wrote something that I hope you find relatable, and I hope that it brings us together and makes our journey a little sweeter. I've attended East Flint Church of the Nazarene for a year or two, but I know Mike and Denise from their time in Holly Church of the Nazarene. My husband and I have been married for approximately 22 years. We have 8 children. Last year we brought home the newest member of our family, a son from Bulgaria. We're not from Bulgaria, he's adopted. Adoption is expensive, so we wrote grants and did a lot of fundraising. I remember on one of the grants I had to indicate the name of the church we attended, as well as the pastor's contact information. I guess I'm just gonna jump right in and share that my marriage has struggled because I have taken the lead and my husband has allowed me to. However, this was something that the Lord corrected during the adoption process. I still fight to trust and let go, and he still fights to lead. I decided to go ahead and share because this may be a trial that someone else in the room is going through, and maybe it'll encourage one of you. Early in the adoption, I told my husband, I can't apply for this grant unless you pick a church. So here we are. We actually had been between churches since the birth of our daughter, who has some special needs. My husband chose East Flint Church of the Nazarene because of Pastor Mike. When Pastor Mike was just barely the new pastor in Holly, my husband's best friend took his own life. We pulled into the parking lot for the funeral late. I'm sorry, we often are. We don't mean to be, but we often are late. We pulled into the parking lot. We saw some people we thought we recognized in another area, and there was an entire van full of people from our church in Holly. And one of those people was Pastor Mike. He didn't even know us yet, but he was there. He showed up. Another time during their ministry in Holly, Pastor Denise showed up at my doorstep. I was inside the house with our children, stressed and screaming. I would have walked away from that situation, but Pastor Denise is bold. She knocked on the door. That knock and her smiling face on the other side of the door humbled me in an instant. Mike and Denise Graham have been wonderful examples of God's grace and compassion for us. Us Knowles have been a bit stubborn and stuck, like Floppy in the molasses swamp, but still the Graham's journey with us. So I've actually been eager to speak for years. This is my first invitation to do so. When Chris first offered me the opportunity, I excitedly agreed, and she informed me that I could speak for 15 to 20 minutes. I thought, okay, no problem, I can talk about our journey with Gabrielle or Evan for that long. Then she said she was looking forward to hearing what God put on my heart. Do you know one of the things I've been praying about since bringing your son home from Bulgaria is that I would simply sit at the feet of Jesus and listen. Chris's comment affirmed that my will was aligned with God's, but now I actually had to do it. Before we left for our second trip to Bulgaria to bring our son home, Pastor Mike said something during a Sunday morning service that stuck with me. He said, you'll never look into the face of someone you don't love. Have you ever spent some time with someone who's very near the end of their earthly life? Perhaps someone who suffered a long time? The body may look skeletal, the breathing may sound loud. I didn't recognize it in Bulgaria. Our hotel room in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, had a large bed in it. At the foot of the bed was a chaise lounge. Our son was bent backward in the shape of a horseshoe, with the back of his skull pressing into his tailbone the day he came to us from the orphanage. His skin was gray. Our youngest son, a year old at the time, was getting sick at home when we left for Bulgaria. We touched base with home periodically, and we saw that his condition was worsening. I was concerned that he needed to go to the hospital. I kept hearing the words of those who told us that this boy in Bulgaria wouldn't know the difference if we didn't adopt him, telling us he would be better off left there. The money we raised would be better off given to the orphanage, that we were deceiving other people into donating to our adoption because people thought they were helping us adopt a child like our daughter who was born with special needs. And asking us questions like, what do you even see in that kid? Of course, the Lord surrounded us with his people and gave us strength to persevere. I carried a note from my husband's former employer with me that had the words on it, take care of that kid. Other adoptive parents could tell, and they would send notes of encouragement. The woman who grew up in the house that we moved to in an effort to have something more accessible for our daughter who has special needs is a nurse. She just happens to know our pediatrician, and she got a prescription called in for our baby and spent hours with him and our other children who were back at home daily until we returned. Still, those words, the other words, were loud. But as I lay at the foot of that big bed and looked into his face, the face of our son, I chose to believe, as hard as it was, that the Lord Jesus would do the same thing. He would do this hard thing. The child we adopted, a 6-year-old little boy, was dying. Well, when I finally did wait to hear what God wanted me to share today, the thought of looking into the history of Candyland came to mind. I don't know if you guys know this. Zoe Mitchell of the American Experience wrote, in 1948, retired school teacher Eleanor Abbott invented Candyland in a San Diego hospital. Abbott had been diagnosed with polio and during her convalescence was surrounded by children suffering from the same disease. The experience inspired her to create a game that would entertain children during a painful and lonely time in their lives. Candyland was so popular among the young hospital patients that Abbott decided to pitch the idea to toy manufacturer Milton Bradley. It quickly became the company's highest-selling game. During polio outbreaks, children left alone in hospitals without their parents would often be overcome with homesickness and feelings of abandonment. Candyland offered them an escape into a fantasy world. Even children as young as 3 years old could enjoy the game since it required no reading, only writing, and no reading or writing to play, only the ability to identify colors. During the height of the polio epidemic in the 1950s, children were prohibited from congregating in public schools, lakes, or parks to prevent the spread of disease. At a time when most board games were designed for all family play, Candyland was particularly popular because it could be played alone by children who were confined indoors. Although Candyland started in a polio ward, the manufacturers of the sweet little game for sweet little folks never promoted its connection to the infamous disease. As for Candyland's creator, Eleanor Abbott never lost sight of her original goal for the game. She donated all the royalty income she received from Candyland to charities dedicated to serving children in need. It's interesting to me that the game started in a hospital, as our adoption journey also started in one. My 6-year-old daughter likes to tell people she was born in the shape of a donut. Like her brother, hurtful words were said before she joined our family. Your first option is to terminate. The baby will likely be stillborn. We need to discuss how long we'll try to resuscitate your baby before beginning comfort care so she can pass away peacefully. She spent much of the first year of her life in hospitals, which means I did too. Her NICU stay was only 14 days, but my husband would bring all 5 of our older children to see me each night so I could nurse our toddler. We quickly learned that it was harder on me and on them to visit. So many tears were shed when they left the hospital and I returned to our daughter's room. Her longest hospitalization was 46 days in critical care. I lived in the hospital with her, never returning home until she was discharged. We also quickly learned that the best place for me was at her side. When she was in the NICU, every room had its own breast pump. However, just a few months later in the PICU, this wasn't the case. There was one pump for the entire floor to share in a pumping room. I had to coordinate a schedule around other moms, doctors rounding, and multiple other factors. Regardless, I made an effort until I returned one time to a nurse reporting that she had just given my baby morphine because she was agitated. I asked if she had checked her diaper because she didn't like to be wet. The nurse told me she did, yet I could smell that my daughter had had a bowel movement. She was agitated because she was stuck in gooey gumdrops, and the nurse decided morphine was the best way to address that. Another time I had just taken a picture of her because I saw she had just cut her first 2 teeth. When I walked back to the seat that I lived in for 46 days, I heard her make a sound I was unfamiliar with. Within seconds, her life was leaving her body. Our nurse was on lunch, but she had left the blinds between our room and the next open if we needed anything. The nurse next door was to be able to help. However, she wasn't there. I pressed the call button. I screamed for help. The charge nurse was walking through the hall. She was irritated until she saw the monitors and my baby. The incident had not alerted their central control center yet. The next day, an older ICU doctor told his team that had I not been present at her side, things would have been very different. We almost lost her that day, and not in Lollipop Woods. There were many incidents that kept me on guard. As someone who avoided pharmaceuticals and doctors, this added to my distrust of the hospital. I remember she got to a point that she would only smile when her dad visited after work. Sometimes she didn't smile at all. We were both there the day. A nurse told us that children like our daughter were abandoned in the hospital due to their medical needs. I asked my husband if he could imagine our baby going through everything she had been through without us. He couldn't. Yet he disagreed when I said we would be involved in special needs adoption or foster care someday. A few months after our daughter was discharged, a 14-year-old Ukrainian orphan was shared in a support group for moms of children with arthrogryposis. The condition affected her body like it does my daughter's. When I showed her to my husband, he wasn't ready to adopt. He said we could pray for her, and we did, until she aged out of adoption. The news hit me particularly hard. I had been praying for my husband's heart and mine to be united. I was pregnant, but when I learned of her aging out, I had my first miscarriage. Several more followed. I grieved and reached out to anyone I could think of to help me help this girl. People in other countries. I did devotionals about orphans and miscarriages. Reached out to advocates and did fundraisers for other waiting children. My biggest takeaway was to see where God is already working and join Him there. At the time, the only way I knew how to advocate for orphans was through social media. A 14-year-old Indian girl there who was undiagnosed caught my attention. Her hands looked like my daughter's. Her country preferred not to adopt to larger families, but my husband and children still weren't ready to add an orphan to our family. Turns out, I wasn't either. I fundraised for her adoption grant so that when a family finally was ready to adopt her, they'd have funds available. I continued to pray for her, and I continued to pray for my heart and my husband's heart to be united. In December of 2021, approximately 2.5 years after the special needs adoption seed was planted, my teens were ready, and my husband finally said we could pursue it to become our daughter. We took the rainbow trail. As a daughter, my own mother and I struggled in our relationship. I think things might have been perfect the first 7 years of my life, but I don't remember for sure. My younger sister was born that year. I remember I would tell my mom my stomach hurt almost every day so I wouldn't have to go to school. I've never met my sister's dad, and if my mom ever had other boyfriends, I never met any of them either. Well, except one, a dog trainer named Larry. I was 13 when she dated him. He had 2 Akitas, Rebel and Geisha. They were show dogs that he won in his divorce. We had a timid German Shepherd named Missy. She had become aggressive, but his basic obedience training allowed me to walk her. When I was 8 years old, I began writing suicide notes. I think maybe my mom had always battled depression, but after my sister was born, she also developed postpartum depression. My sister's dad said horrible things to my mom about her and about them and about my sister. I'm not certain my mom ever fully recovered. By the time I was 16, I began to doubt God's existence. I met my dad for the first time, who doubted I was his daughter. I had planned to graduate high school, go to the University of Michigan, my mom's favorite team, and then to Harvard for law school. One day I came home from school and told my mom that before I went to college, I wanted to find my dad. She told me, get out the phone book. Within 24 hours, my dad left his home in South Carolina and was in my front yard to meet me. The next week, my mom sent me to South Carolina to be with him and meet his family. When I returned, things only got worse. I began running away. My mom would track me down, bring me home, and kick me out again. Actually, I was at a roller skating competition with one of my older daughters last month. My mom started me in roller skating lessons when I was 10. I went pro and passed the gift on to my own children and to many others. An elderly woman who has known me most of my skating life was at the competition. She asked about the kids. She thinks I have too many. I gave her a brief update, and she just beamed the whole time, holding my hand. Then she said something like, "It's a far cry from living in your car, huh?" She told me how wonderful my family and each of my children are. At the time, all I could think of was the argument I had just had with one of my teens, and how I'm still struggling. Still. Can I ever get to Candy Castle? Can I ever be Queen Frostine? Then I confessed to her that I am still doing all of the things that I did all of those years ago, degrading my performance, never good enough, never grateful. But how far have I come from living in a car? I've been living in the ice cream sea, but couldn't see it. During those early days with my physically disabled daughter, I was encouraged by the reminder that I was equipped to be her mom. The only way she could stand was when she was younger, was in a pair of heavy roller skates. All of my training that I thought was frivolous was beneficial to her. It helped me realize that my mom was exactly the mom I needed. God equipped her to mother a daughter like me. I thought some of my mom's punishments were harsh, maybe even abuse. If authorities would have seen the inside of our home, they would have taken my sister and me away. What I could not see before was that even though all the things, my mom protected me from alcoholics, true abuse, so much evil. On February 3rd, 2023, we received a call telling us that we were rejected from adopting a girl in India. We weren't given a reason at the time. Shortly after that phone call, my sister called. She was hysterical. Our mom had been found dead outside of her home. The last time my sister spoke to her was 4 days prior. It was even longer for me. God taught me so much that day. His greatest gift was grace. It was like the scales had been removed from my eyes and I could see all of her choices and they all made sense. Everything was done in love. My biggest regret was not loving her the way my daughters love me. I think she was embarrassed by the way we lived. She kept curtains, blankets, and towels over the windows. After she passed, I ripped them all down to let light in so we could see in the dark places. I wish I could have done that for her. My mom never met our youngest sons. Neither did my mother-in-law. One of the last pieces of advice my mom gave me was to walk the dogs. It was something I did when I was a teenager with that German Shepherd, Missy. My mom could see that it helped me, and she could see that I still needed those walks now. My mother-in-law, her home was always open to help anyone needing help. My mom always rooted for the underdog, and she never gave up. Our children, including our youngest sons, will witness these gifts taught to us by our moms. They will know them through their legacies. My husband's name is Ryan. His mom told me his name means little king. She also told me he just needs time to think about things sometimes. She was right. I wish I would have spent more time with her, learning from her. Some of my daughters did though, so I learned from them. Our youngest son's name is Rory, which means red king. I hope it doesn't have anything to do with some of his toddler talk. Our newest son's name is Evan, which means God is gracious. And oh, how gracious the Lord is to give us mothers. In closing, I think about the two children holding hands at the beginning of the trail on our Candyland game board. How many times I've asked my children to get the game out so I can see it to help deliver something sweet, special, and sacred to you today. A special phrase given to me early in my days as a special needs mom was, "We can do hard things." Each year I choose a word for our family to focus on. As my children have become adults, I chose the word together. Attaching that word to the beginning of the phrase becomes, we can do hard things together, hand in hand, joyfully skipping through the land like our sweet friends on the game board. Thank you.